Jude arrived in Frightenstein. Perhaps the Count will find a way to make his monster work today. For if he solves this monster mania, he can return to Transylvania. So welcome where the sun won't shine to the castle of Count Frightenstein.
Hello, happy Halloween, everybody. How you guys all doing? I'm your host, Derrick Whiteskycloud, and you're watching Between Two Worlds Radio on the UPRN Talk Radio Network. Yes, if you want to actually find me there, you can actually go to the uprntalkradio.com. And we're also being heard by up in New Orleans. I want to thank also 107.7 FM for welcoming us in the studio as well in the station. Tonight we're going to be talking about, the most scariest stuff in the world, and that is the most scariest stories that most people have actually experienced. And I've gone through a lot myself through it as a kid growing up, because the house that I actually lived in was haunted. And I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, here up in Canada here, and the home that I was living in was very haunted. But as a kid who was 10 years old, it was, to me, no one ever knew what a ghost was. You just thought that there's some people, invisible people there, and they're talking to you, and you thought, okay, here I am. So anyways, we tonight, I don't have any guests, but what I decided to do, I decided to actually have people that want to call in and tell their most scariest experience, whether it's paranormal, whether they had experienced ghosts, even besides ghosts, there's always other things, or even as a child growing up, and see if they might have actually either experienced shadows, UFO experiences, anything like this, because for some reason, everyone has always wanted to experience something that really would scare them. Well, the one particular, I would say, a movie, there were a couple that, one major one scared me. When actually, the original one was with Linda Blair, and that's called The Exorcist. And that was the original one that got me. And I was only 16 years old then, living on the farm at the time, and I lived in Alberta at the time, and I was dating a girl. Yes, I had to take my girlfriend. I wanted to take her to a movie, but I didn't realize what The Exorcist was about. I thought it was just a movie, right? And you really want to show off to your friends or people that I got a girlfriend. You bring her in. You thought, okay, this could be a popcorn night. You're going to get lucky, that sort of thing. Well, it started off well, sitting next to each other. We're in the middle of the theater. And the movie starts, and it's okay, gliding through until they show the part where the girl gets attacked and she starts to lift off the bed. And I was okay with that. Okay, that's fine. You talk about the scariness of it. What really got me, and I don't know why, I didn't realize how, I guess you say, how it connected me, because myself, I work as a psychic medium. Go figure, I talk to the dead. But at the time, as a kid growing up, I didn't realize I was that connected to the dark world. That was scary. Most people don't realize, I guess you'd say, how... And I didn't realize I was that connected to the spirit world, and how I was able to see spirits or understand the bad side of it, or the scary side of it. Because as a kid growing up, you don't really know what this devil thing is about. Because people would mention the word devil. I mean, even our good friend Jordan Maxwell would say, there's no such thing as the devil. That's just a D in front of evil. Well, yeah, but... A person like myself, I experienced it. I experienced something really, really scary. It made my heart pound so hard that I felt I couldn't breathe. And I'm sure some of you may have experienced that yourself. When I went through that, and again, we'll go back to the movie, The Exorcist, as well. This is where my first experience became for what it is, because when I watched that head spin. How many of you folks are listeners and viewers? And well, thank you guys for joining us also in the Facebook chat room, because I have actually made this as well. How many of you guys actually watched the movie Exorcist, the very first one with Lyndon Blair? Let me know. Would love to let me know as well. And if you watched The Exorcist, what did you think of it? And if you notice, I did a bit of a documentary and review of it, where a lot of people in the United States believed that Linda Blair was possessed, that she was connected to the devil, all because here's a 10-year-old kid, 10, 12 years old, an actress, and everybody's believing the fact that she really was possessed. And she wasn't. She was just being an actress. She was just doing what she was asked to do. But in the meantime, for years, she had a very difficult time, as far as I understand. She had a very difficult time being an actress. After the movie was made, it almost destroyed her reputation. It almost destroyed her as a human being. And, people begin to believe that there is only, purity, in a child. Yes, there is. But when a child gets caught up in a movie, when your son or your daughter wants to be an actor or actress, or and they experience a role play in a horror flick, even if it's zombieism back in those years, nobody really cared about the zombie part at the time, because if a child you never did see a child become a zombie in a movie back in those 80s, 70s, and 80s. You never did. Nor hardly in the 90s, but it started to happen when the TV series came on where those kids became zombies. So it never really came about having a child become a killer in a movie, or a child become possessed in the movie. And only one child became possessed in the movie, and that was Linda Blair, when she played that role in The Exorcist. Now, mind you, what you folks don't know, I have good friends. Christopher St. Booth and his brother Adrian were the original men that actually did a movie, or a documentary actually, and they actually, let's see if I got it right here. Yes, it is. I have it here. Hang on one second, folks. I've got the DVD. Okay. I had, and I'll turn it on. I'll show you guys. This is the movie, and it's called The Haunted Boy. Okay? If you want to see a scary, true story about the possessed, this would be this one. I have a copy of the original writings of the three priests that actually spent the time to trying to remove the devil out of the boy. The Exorcist is based on this. So the girl herself, Linda Blair, was not possessed, but she played that role. So basically, the original story was about a boy, but they put it into a girl. I don't know why they say use a girl. They could have used a boy, but they didn't. And when I seen this DVD, and I was very fortunate to get the booklet. Christopher St. Booth sent me a copy of all the writings that the priests examine the child while they're trying to depossess the child. I'm the only one that has that booklet. I can only handle reading halfway through it. Now, I'm a very strong person that I can handle things that can be scary, so to speak. I mean, really, it's harsh. And if you talk about other people, Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren, when they were doing their investigations in these haunted homes, this still takes it. This movie or the story, because this was, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the most powerful possessions, powerful scariness. If anybody wants to experience a Halloween night, and it is a night tonight because we've had fireworks go off like crazy. About a week ago, we had people were celebrating Diwali. Fireworks going off like crazy for, oh God, hours and hours and hours. Since 6 o'clock up until 2, 3 in the morning. Tonight, fireworks are going off again. And it's going to go like crazy for the next 5 or 6 hours. And sometimes if you actually watch the show, you may hear some explosions in the background. That's not me. That's them out there. And this is what can happen. We don't realize, even fireworks can be frightening. Because there are people out there that are that are from different parts of the country that actually have experienced war-torn wars. And to them, that's scary. There's a fellow who I met from Iran that moved down here. Never knew about people celebrating with fireworks. And one afternoon, I guess he was standing next to the bus stop in the evening, and he told me the story, and he said a whole bunch of fireworks went off, and he just jumped into the ground, and he laid there. Because it reminded him of his childhood that these explosions, the bombs went off like crazy, so it scared him. To him, that's his fear. That was Halloween to him meant nothing, he said, but the fireworks scared him. So, there are people out there today that don't realize, when I had Johnny Enoch on the program last week, and we talked about the most scariest things that there are a lot of things how to celebrate, what most people do by celebrating Halloween. And you can call it Halloween, you can call it, some people call it Halloween, you can give it any kind of name. But it is all to do with Hallowed Eve, or Hallowed Ween, and people are celebrating the harvest. And it went further and further and further for every country. Now, Canada is a little different. A lot of people dress up, and as well as you in the United States, people dress up because they want to be different. They dress up because, to them, originality, people dress up to scare the evil spirits away from you. Can you actually picture people dressing up as a superhero and you're trying to chase an evil spirit away? I don't think so. Can you picture people actually dressing up as a politician and you say, well, I'm dressing up as a politician so I can scare an evil spirit away? I don't think though. I don't think so. I think sometimes they could be evil spirits. But I would say a lot of people don't realize that you can experience a very scary moment in your life. Everyone has one scary moment in their life, and they don't realize that it can affect them, and they carry it with them. They take it with them for such a long, long time. People who actually travel across the land, people travel to the United States, people travel across Canada, and especially if you're staying over in some hotels, a lot of hotels actually have a lot of hauntings as well. And there's many times that I've actually been to hotels, and I spent the night there, even a motel, for example, and they can also be a very uncomfortable night at times because how do I know that maybe someone may have committed suicide there, or someone was murdered somewhere near there, or had died natural causes in the hotel, and they decide to stay in their spirit. And to me, my night is not fearful, but my night is restless, because they come and bug me. When they find out I can hear them or see them, I'm bugged all night. I mean, literally bugged all night. And they'll come up to me and they'll breathe in my ear, and you hear this, like, really? That drives me freaking nuts. I said, stop that. I can hear that. You don't have to do that to me. But when they do that, they're getting frustrated. They just want your attention. Or they start throwing things around, and it's always small things, not as much as big things, or things will move. So I mean, I've always felt, and people used to always invite me to do psychic parties on Halloween. The most fun experience that I had, I did psychic, because myself as being a psychic medium, I was invited to a Halloween party to be the psychic that night, to read the people that were there. And they gave me a room upstairs. Now, most people didn't know that house itself was quite old, and it was over 100 years old. And the whole house actually was haunted. I mean, it was haunting because it belonged to an older man who owned it, and his wife as well. And she passed away first, and he passed away after. But they gave me the upstairs area. It's a loft where his wife, the man who owned the house, it was a loft where his wife was upstairs, and she was an artist, and she would do her art upstairs. So I used that room to do readings from. The coolest part was being upstairs was no big deal, except when I left the room to go to the bathroom, and I come back upstairs, and as I'm walking up to the top of the stairs, I'm seeing a pair of brown loafer shoes at the edge. Okay, so say this is the edge of the steps right here. As I'm walking to the top, I see a pair of brown loafer shoes, the front of them sticking out all over the edge. Now, and they had little holes on the tops of them. So as I'm getting closer to upstairs, I said, "Oh, how you doing? I see your feet." And as I'm walking up further upstairs, his feet back up, and they wasn't there. That tells me that he decided to stay. That he's watching the house. And yet, the man was kind to me. I had fun being there, and it was nice to get to know people. Now, we talk about the most haunted stories of our lives, and I mean, I've experienced quite a few of them. So anybody, if you folks actually are interested in wanting to call in and tell your story, we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to give you guys a number, a phone number. If you ever go to the website, you can type in uprntalkradio.com. You go to the website and you'll actually find the phone number at the top, and the area code is 504-273-7379. That's 504-273-7379. And if you want to call in and share with us your story, your most haunting story, we'd love to hear from you, because I would like to hear the story. I like hearing those ghostly stories. You never know, right? Now, there is one story that I want to talk about, because one young lady is in the chat room, and her last name is Caillou. I will say thank you for joining and listening in. She reminded me of a story about 4 young boys in northern Alberta that came up to me when I was doing my work about 5 years ago down in that region in northern Alberta. And it was a piece of farmland, and the four boys are living out there. And a couple of their cows were dying. They're actually being killed, and nobody really knew why they were being killed. But from a distance in the field, they can hear the cow go, and they're laying in the field. So the boys ran out with their rifles, and they thought it was a bear. So they kept shooting it. Pow, 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 like shooting it. Shooting it, and they had like 8 shots in this bear. The bear was leaning over, or they thought the big hairy back was leaning over the cow. It never even moved. It just jerked every time a bullet shot inside of it. It just jerked like this way and jerked that way and jerk, right? Then suddenly the kid was yelling, "Hey!" And next thing you know, it got up. And they thought it was a bear first, until it was up higher, until it stood about 8 to 9 feet tall. But here's what happened. The back of it looked like a bear. But as it got higher, like standing up, it didn't have legs. It didn't have regular human legs. It had goat legs. It was huge. They just stood there and they were stunned. They just stared at it. It turned around while it just finished eating the guts out of the cow. It ran up to the boys. And the boys first thinking is they're going to die, right? He ran up to the boys so fast. And he looked at the boys and he said, "You can't kill me." And then he walked right past them into the forest, disappeared. True story. The boys asked me, "What the hell was that?" I love telling that story because they wouldn't lie to me. Because as they were telling me the story, they were scared. They kept looking back over their shoulder thinking, is it still there? They had a very restless sleep, but it only happened once because the throughout the years or the weeks, and they thought, okay, one of us is going to stay outside. We're going to put a trap out there, whatever. It never killed any more cows. But there was a couple of cows that were killed because it wanted to eat the cows. But after that, it never bothered the cows. Now, it walked in the forest and disappeared. But even though they were going to try and find it, they couldn't find it anywhere. Now, the forest in Alberta is all made of either pine or oak or, black pine, white pine. That's pretty well it. Nothing more really. And it got there. Like I said, it's a really good story, and it got my attention. I'm thinking, okay, people talk one of the most scariest stories ever. Well, that's one of them, right? And one day I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna take that little booklet down, and I'm gonna read the booklet regarding the haunted boy and see and read right through it. But if you guys ever want to get this DVD, it's worth it. It's called The Haunted Boy, The Secret Diary of the Exorcist, and that's the true story behind The Exorcist from the creators of Spooked. As guys are the Booth brothers, Chris and Adrian Booth. I've known these guys for a lot of years. Originally, these guys were rock and rollers. Yeah, they actually have their own band, very well-known band. So they went from being a rock band to paranormal investigators, and also doing all kinds of documentaries and paranormal documentaries. So they've done videos or DVDs, Children of the Grave, The Unseen, The Possessed, Spooked, which is the Ghost of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Soul Catcher, The Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears, that was a really good one. The Dreamcatcher is not, or the Soul Catcher is not what you think it is. It's not just a common, regular investigation, paranormal investigation. This took place on a reserve in a residential school. And they are the very first people that was given an opportunity to paranormal investigate a residential school. And this is the United States. I believe it's Arizona. I could be wrong again. Let's see here. I'll look. Yeah, this is the one right here. This is the video right here. And it's called The Soul Catcher. This is all true stuff. This is all true stories. So this is what you're going to see. Okay. And the Soul Catcher is taken to the Mojave Desert of Oklahoma, the haunted ghost hills. They basically, people are talking about the shapeshifters and the skinwalkers and the stolen souls of the Soul Catcher. So exploring the Native American spirit world in this supernatural adventure that leads to the true trail of fears. I watched it, and I'm telling you guys, it got my attention because I'm a recipient of also residential school survivor. But this is what happens. These are children that have gone missing too. Their deaths have never been resolved, nor has ever been any investigation made by the police. So there's a lot of kids that were buried and they're not named and or disappeared because there was a lot of terrible things that have happened to them. And so what they decided to do is Christopher St. Booth and his crew went down there, investigated it, and one of the shadows grew in the, like, basically it showed a shadow from a distance in the camera, and it went very, very tall, like as in 10, 12 feet tall. It showed itself being as a normal from a distance, and all of a sudden it just grew tall, tall, tall. So if you guys ever want to see some really great interviews, documentary, true information about scare, like, you know, talk about the real paranormal, that is what they call scary. Now, to get back to the story regarding The Exorcist, like I said before at the beginning of the show, when I took my girlfriend out with me and I went to the theater, and then, you know, like I said, I thought it was going to be really cool, and I had my arms around her. So we got about maybe, I think it was around halfway through the movie, and then when she had that possession where her face changed, and then her head became demonic looking, and then her head started to spin and threw up, whatever type of thing, I got up and I ran out the door. Yep, I ran out. I went outside, and literally I thought I was going to throw up. Not because she threw up, it's because it felt like it was real. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. It affected me. The Exorcist, the movie, it affected me. And yet, when I went back later into the theater, my girlfriend, I left her behind in there for about 5 minutes. I came back and I sat next to her, and she was just laughing. She thought this whole thing was funny. It's funny. It's so stupid. It's funny. And I'm going like, you're kidding me. No. Now, here's how she said it's so stupid and funny. My girlfriend was a stoner. Yes. She smoked a joint before she got there. Yeah. I didn't even realize it. I just thought to myself, why isn't she laughing? Or why is she laughing? And it was the stone that, like, she has smoked a joint before she went in. I never smoked. She smoked a joint when she went in and sat down there, and she thought it was like nothing but funny. This is what can happen, folks. If you smoke pot and you go to see a scary movie, you're not going to get scared. You're going to be laughing your ass off. According to her, anytime she wants to see a scary movie, she just smokes a joint, goes in there, and, you know, and knows that it's a big difference. She's not affected by the fear. It's just the laughter. Anyways. But through the years, for many, many years, and then I know in time they may decide to make an Exorcist 2 and a 3 and everything to go off on top of that. They'd like to make, you know, and then they decided to make another one, like another Linda Blair movie, but somebody else plays another role. And it, you know, they're going to keep on replaying. The thing is, they're going to try so hard. They're trying so hard now, trying to scare people even more. We become so numb that we don't fear things as much as we used to. If you notice that there's a lot more gore, and yet a lot of people that do the TV series called Face Off, you know, that was more of a competitive makeup work, and they're trying to make it things look as, you know, scary, gory, you name it, as much as they can. We get so used to it. It's wonderful to have competition. It's wonderful to be a great makeup artist, but when we start seeing these movies later on, you become so used to the fear. You get so used to being scared, or you want to get scared more. And now they got another movie coming out called Friday the 13th. And I'm going like, oh, wow, here we go again. Repeat. Because originally Friday the 13th came from the late 70s, early 80s. And so now they're trying to see if they can get you re-scared again. A brand new, another generation. We'll see, right? Anyways, so people love to have fun with Halloween. I mean, I do. I enjoy Halloween myself. I think it's. I always love dressing up. When I was a kid, I was always been fascinated by being either an executioner or being a wolfman. And as I was always been fascinated by Lon Chaney. He was my most, I would say, favorite actor as far as makeup artistry is concerned. And I loved his work. He was a pretty phenomenal guy. And when I watched him become the Wolfman, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I watched a program, how some of the makeup work is done. And that was on TV. This is back in the 70s. I was 19 years old, and I decided to become a wolfman for Halloween for the first time. So I got some rubber glue. Yeah, rubber glue. I put it on my face. I actually went to the barber shop and I tried to find all the cuttings I can get, and but make sure the hair was clean, like not, I wasn't gonna be stupid enough to put somebody else's hair in my face, but make sure I cleaned it really well. And then I took the hair, and I would put from the bottom up layers and put the hair on to look like a wolfman. And I'm sure you'll see. I'll share you with one of the photographs I got, folks, later on on my Facebook page. You'll get to see it, what I looked like when I was 19. I even put a small little cigarette burn hole in my chest. It looked like blood around it because, the Wolfman was always shot at and still survived. I love playing that role of being a Wolfman. And when I was... you went out to go to the bar, and there's always a contest. People always dress up for the best Halloween costume. And so I got in there, walked in there with friends of mine, and there was a girl that I was attracted to, and I thought, okay, I'll just show off. I'll pretend to be the Wolfman and make the bite, right? But I got the fake blood, and I put it on the side of my mouth, and I had the teeth. Now, I didn't have upper teeth because you're supposed to use your lower jaw as the lower jaw bite, right? And I found a way, when I got those fake teeth, the ones that you can get plastic, and I took the top ends off, and I took some bubble gum, stick it inside those teeth so they can stay inside. You can enjoy your drink and whatever have you so it doesn't fall out all the time. And it worked out really good. They felt like they were part of me. I put the fake blood inside my face, and I'm just pretending to think, okay, I'll go for the bite for the girl just to have fun. Well, she bought herself a brand new Angora sweater that day to go dress up with her friends for Halloween. She didn't dress up, she just dressed up. She wasn't dressing for Halloween, she was just dressed up, period. Like if she's going to a nightclub. Well, big mistake. I thought I was playing cool, and I walked up to her go for the bite, and she pushed me back, and the first thing she responded was, "Look what you did to my sweater. You got that fake blood all over me." And oh no. She made me look like a heel, like I was the worst guy in the room. How dare you? Get out of here. I don't want to look at your face anymore. She was like so pissed at me because I actually got that fake blood on her sweater. Well, you know what? She's got to deal with it now, right? That's how it works. And it bothered me for a while, and I apologized to her. I said, I'll take, if you, all I have to do is just give me your sweater, and I'll get a dry clean for you. No, she refused to. So I thought, okay, fine, forget it. And I didn't bother with her that night. But friends of mine, they had the contest, and my cousin walked in playing a gorilla. And he had a shorter friend of his. He actually played a zookeeper. So he dressed up like the guys from Australia, you know, the same kind of outfit, the hat, the African type of hat, and the whip and the chain looking. And my cousin Wayne, all he wore was the gorilla mask and a pair of the hairy gloves and the large T-shirt and pants, and he just hunched over like a gorilla, and he looked pretty good, especially in the dark. And anyways, that night, he won first. Those guys won the best couple, so to speak, the best team for the best team for the contest, and so they got a dinner for two for that, and I got the best first place for the Wolfman. It wasn't werewolf back then; it was Wolfman. Werewolves came later, but yeah, I had fun doing it. And we actually had 3 bars. They're about 2 blocks apart from each other. So I went from one bar, then we went to the next bar because the contest wasn't on yet. So we walked to the next bar, and we're going to winning contest after contest. So whether you get first, second place, third place, you name it. But I won a little bit, and then that's how you would get free drinks. That's how it used to work. Yeah, we had fun doing it. So, people like to always come up with some really great ideas. I mean, especially when I was like, this is back in the 70s, and I was trying to come up with something that would be kind of cool and scary, and I thought it was kind of fun. And even to this day, I would still love to dress up as a Wolfman, similar kind of outfit or costume. And I would like to get someone one day, probably do that same feature on me and just do it just for the fun of it. Because I love it. Somehow I don't know why, somehow people are always wanting to be, dress up as, yeah, okay. Now in the chat room, Heather says, I always dress up as a witch until the last few years I dress up as a druidess. Hey, cool. Druidess. That's a good thing, I've been noticing now, I'm listening to the radio or other stations, and they're actually saying that what's appropriate and not appropriate, and they're asking a lot of the kids or the parents to not allow their kids to dress up as appropriate culture, which is fine. I do believe in that, like don't dress up as, if you're a white person, don't dress up as a South Asian, or don't dress up as a Chinese person, or don't dress up, as an Indian, so to speak. That's fine. I understand that part because that's part of my culture. But what really got me is when they said on the radio, don't dress up as a jailbird to the kids. Like, don't dress up as a prisoner. Why? And they also said don't dress up as a prisoner and not a homeless person, a hobo. You're not allowed to dress up as a hobo. Well, I'm thinking, a hobo is not homeless. A hobo is a person that lived by the railroad and traveled by the railroad, and then they weren't poor. Well, in one way they were, but these are guys that were just trying to survive the lifestyle. A lot of people dressed up as hobos, right? For years. I mean, even actors played the character on TV, as a hobo. Like Red Skelton, he played Freddy the Freeloader, right? Freddy the Freeloader actually was a hobo, traveling hobo. But yet, you're going to find people out there that are going to say what's offensive, what's not offensive. I can understand what Trudeau had done. He put the blackface on, yeah, and he's done it for years and years. Well, because he was attracted to blackface. I think if Trudeau had if he actually was darker skinned, he probably would have done it anyways, no matter what. He was attracted to that. That's probably part of what he was interested in doing, because he felt that he can't create his own idea to do something else different. But today, I just saw a photograph, and he dressed up as, guess what? Sherlock Holmes. Really? We have a prime minister dressing up as Sherlock Holmes, especially when he's being investigated by the SNC Lavalin investigation, and he's telling the police that they can't investigate him because he's the prime minister. But yet that's a different story. But he's playing Sherlock Holmes. Like, okay, what case are you going to try and solve, buddy? But he's trying to play somebody different, but no blackface. He was trying to avoid the cameras for sure, even though he was with his kids. But anyways, it was funny the way I just saw that. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. No shit, Sherlock. Yeah. That's funny as all can be. What can you do? But it's people have a tendency of trying to, and there are no people. A lot of people don't even dress up. They like to use fireworks a lot. Well, I'm gonna tell you guys a bit of a scary story in that one. When my mom was young, before I was born then? Yes, I was. Mom said I was about 4 or 5 years of age. My mom and dad were asked to come out to an area where they were shooting fireworks, and it was on the school grounds. This was in Brandon, Manitoba. All the families came out there, and I guess whoever the person was, and you know those long rockets, those big ones. Well, I guess some people were very careless and didn't stabilize the rocket properly, and I guess the rocket, somebody from across the grounds lit up the rocket. The rocket shot over and hit the shoulder of a little girl, a little 10-year-old. And I guess the older brother saw this, got hit in the shoulder, and it fell down and it next to the girl. And because the thing will explode, right? The older brother ran over and leaped on top of the rocket and jumped on top of it, like he put his body on top of it, like on his stomach. It exploded. The boy died right there, saving his sister. That's why I have difficulty with fireworks. I have seen kids take a fireworks or part of the fireworks and they'll hold it in the air to dare each other. It's like, say this is a firework, and they're going like holding it in the air, and then it goes off, and all of a sudden their fingers are gone. It's called foolishness. But they do this. And, I mean, I don't like to bring things down, but I always tell people, if you're going to use fireworks, be safe, and it's always good to learn the rules and regulations of how to handle fireworks. You know, it's just like learning how to be a pilot or learning how to use your drone. You know, they're going to learn other things, but to experience it properly and not carelessness. And there are people out there that are trying some stupid crap, and then they wonder why. Just tonight, a couple of days ago, somebody was very, how do you say, inhumane. Took someone's dog and put the fireworks in the dog's mouth while it was lit and explode, and the dog lost his lower jaw, and they thought that was funny. I didn't like that. You know, and you want to talk about what's scary? That is scary. That is ridiculous. That's stupid. But there are people out there, that's all they want to do. So right now we've got our government now talking about to pass a law that they're no longer allowing fireworks in our city districts or some of our areas. So we'll find out. You know, I live in Canada. I live in British Columbia. We'll see what happens. If the carelessness is continued, and if there's any, form of fires around anywhere or any houses on fire, they'll stop it. You know, I mean, like I said, unless you got safe zones where you actually use the fireworks, no problem. Anyways, let's get back to the story. There's so many wonderful stories to talk about. If you guys actually have a story that you want to share with me, I'd love to hear from you. I'll send you a phone number right now. It's area code 504-273-7379. That's 504-273-7379. I'll even post it in here just to let you know ahead of time. 04, okay, here. 04 and 273 7379. I know everybody's out there tonight doing a lot of trick and treating, and there's more tricks than treats. But it's a lot of fun to do, and I mean, you guys can voice your opinion, what you think about any of this, or if you actually, like I said, or if you guys actually have experience, say what your thoughts are when you actually watched The Exorcist for the very first time, what you thought about that. If you've got a really scary story to tell regarding what you experienced, even if you're involved as a paranormal investigator, I'd love to hear from you on that one. Because we got like our good friend Joe Montaldo, you know, he's got a radio station here, and Joe's been doing it for many, many years. I'm sure he's got some really scary stories to talk about. I know that because Joe's been around, I'm sure. He's got so most guys will say, well, I got my first scary story was when I got married. No. What can I say? Anyways, it's a lot of fun to do. I'm gonna let's see here. We're gonna do talking about more things regarding what I've gone through. Possessions. Okay. Now we did talk about The Exorcist, and this story, which, like I said, the brothers actually had investigated this one, and they interviewed one of the priests the last priest before he died. And this is the video. Okay. You guys want to order it and watch it. It's worth every penny. You want to see something that's real, that's what you want to see. Okay. Because when I watched The Haunted Boy, I was only able to handle about halfway through it because it was getting to be like my chest started kicking in again, like, oh, not again, you know, that feeling here's that feeling when I watched The Exorcist, the movie itself. So it was crazy. But anyways, I have experienced possessions. Myself as a medium, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. Let's see, back, I would say 20 years ago. So it's 2019 now. Yeah, 2009. No, hang on a second, less than that. The year was 2000, okay, I'm trying to think, 2010. Back in 2010, I was living in this other house, and in the Delta region. Anyways, this mother wanted to bring her son to me, and she said there's something wrong with him, and she doesn't understand why. And this young man was 16 years of age. And I said, well, what's going on? And she said, well, she said he's not himself. He's not acting like himself. I don't know what's going on, but he acts different. And she says his voice changes a lot as he's talking to her. And I said, well, did he go through his puberty already? And she goes, oh, he did that when he was 12. And I said, but his voice is getting deeper a lot. But he says he's always verbally attacking her, like verbally going off on her and telling her off. And she says, that's not my son. I know that's not him. And I need you to talk to him. So myself being a counselor, she thinks there's something wrong. So I thought, okay, fine, well, bring him over. So she brought him over, and she left the room, and she left him with me. And like I said, he's a young 16-year-old boy sitting there, a young man, sitting next to my table. And I said, oh, your mom brought you to me for a reason. She thinks there's something going on that she doesn't understand why you are, acting this way with your mom. Are you hating her? Are you angry with her? Did she do something wrong to you? And he said, no, she's fine. And then I said, well, then why do you verbally attack her? She's saying that you're verbally attacking her. And he was saying, I don't verbally attack my mom unless she provokes me. But then he says, well, he's the one that comes back and tells her off. And I said, he who? Like, who's he? And he said, him. And I said, well, what's this guy? What's his name? Well, I can't tell you. And I said, why can't you tell me? I said, why don't you call him out and I'll talk to him myself. And he said, you don't want to. And I said, yeah, I want to call him out. Have him come talk to me. He sat across the table from here, like as I'm talking to you guys. He dropped his head like this down. Not even a minute. Raised his head back up, opened his eyes. They were jet black. All of them. All of his eyes were black. Completely black. His voice changed deeper. It was, to me, my heart went like, oh, like this, like, whoa. Like, you don't expect that. It caught me off guard. Like, whoa, you know. So I thought, okay, how do you handle that? So I decided to take my time, be casual, don't get him all worked up, you know, be patient. And so I said to him, okay, who are you and why are you possessing this boy? And he said, he said he took the boy about 4 weeks before. And I said, how did you meet the boy? And he said, he met me at the graveyard where I am buried. Oh, really? So you're buried there and you took the boy. How is it you took the boy from where you buried? And he said, because he called me out and he called me out. So I said, well, how did he call you out? You ask him. So, okay, fine, I waited. But I said, you have to leave him now. You can't stay with this boy. You're not allowed to be with him. You cannot possess him. You don't belong here. You need to go back to where you belong. No, I'm not leaving. I said, yes, you are. So I called for the archangels to help me depossess the boy, to stop him. I reached over and I touched him, and then he yelled like, no, like this, and he dropped his head, and he opened his eyes cleared white, back to himself. I looked at the boy and I said, what got him to attach himself to you? What did you do? Where were you 4 weeks ago? And he said, I was out with some friends. I said, what did you do? Where'd you go? Did you go to a graveyard? Yes. Okay. What did you do in the graveyard? Nothing. I said, tell the truth. What did you do in the graveyard? Well, we played a game. What kind of game? Well, we played the Ouija board. You're kidding. No, we played the Ouija board. How many of you? 4. Okay. What did you say? Well, they were joking around, holding beers in their hands, with a Ouija board, so in the graveyard, and they have the Ouija board sitting on top of a tombstone. And they're calling out anything that's in there. It says, dare you to come out and talk to us, or dare you to come and see you, you know. And I guess whatever they said, or however, one of the boys had said, I dare that he can ever possess you, because probably a rumor was, or they can't possess me. And he said, you can't possess me, ha ha ha. Next thing you know, guess what happened? The boy became possessed. So something came out and went after him. Okay. I was only able to depossess the boy temporarily because I didn't call it a demon. It was more of like a minion, little tiny, not the little yellow guys, but the one that it was lesser than. It didn't feel like it had more power than your action type of devil type of thing, right? And it was a lower minion, something really small, but he tried to make himself look as if he's more very powerful. And so I challenged him, and I said to him, I said, you can't keep the boy, you can't possess him, because God's much more powerful than you. And you can't stop me, he said. I said, yes, I can. So I called for the archangels, and I asked the archangels to remove him from him. And he yelled, the boy yelled. And I said, and I thought to myself, okay, I told the mom, I said, this is only temporary. This boy is not totally depossessed yet, because there's a lot of prayers to do, and you're going to need a major ceremony, because this boy got possessed on sacred land, on an area that was a First Nations burial site. Because I know where he went. So she says, well, what do I do? And I said, you need to go to a Yuwipi ceremony. It's called Calling of the Spirit ceremony. And Uncle Crow Dog was coming into town. And he's Lakota Sioux from the Rosebud Reserve. And he was coming into town, and he was going to be doing the ceremony. So the Calling of the Spirits is in the dark. And hundreds of people show up just for him, just to be there so they can receive their prayers of healing from him. But the way they do the ceremony he's not just sitting by himself, and he's not doing, just sitting loosely. They actually do a step-by-step ceremony where he's tied and bound, and where the spirits talk through him. So if anybody wants to get healing, they all sit around the outside area of where he is. So I told the mother, I said, pretend that you are there for healing, but have your son go with you and sit next to you. And so she was up front with him. And so she those two sat next to Crow Dog. And there must have been well over almost 200 people in that room that night. A couple hours goes by. You don't realize how quickly it goes. A couple hours go by so fast. And you have to experience it one time. Just, you'll find out what it's like. But when I was there, I saw a vision. And I thought, okay. And when Uncle Crow Dog sent out a medicine rattle, and it went around the room, and it shook over the boy, and I could see it from a distance where the boy was. I said, got him. So when I got that vision, I was happy about that. And I thought, okay. So after the ceremony was over, Uncle Crow Dog passed around the medicine pipes. And I looked over, and the boy was sound asleep out like that. And I thought, that's done. So his mom came over, and she said, he's not hurting, he's not screaming. And she said, it's the first time he's actually slept in a week. And I said, good, now you know it's gone, because Crow Dog took care of it. Because it was that particular ceremony. You do not, and I warn you guys, anyone, do not play with Ouija boards on a burial ground. Ever. This is what happens to kids. And they keep on playing that game. I tell you, don't do it. A month later, a story was actually out there after the umbo was taken care of. And a month later, I get a phone call. Another mother calls me up. And she's saying to me, I have a problem with my son. And I believe he's possessed. I went, oh no, here we go again. So for some reason, people are starting their beliefs, or this game of using Ouija boards and in graveyards. It became such a stupid thing, but they're doing it so often. So this boy came to see me, and he wanted to go through the similar ceremony, but Uncle Crow Dog wasn't there at the time. He was back home again. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll do the ceremony myself. But I did a different type of ceremony to depossess the boy. And I did. I had friends that helped me, and we took care of the boy. He had the same problem. Eyes turned jet black, the whole 9 yards. That's same possession. Different being that was actually in him. But really what got me is after he left, he was in tears. He was crying. And I said to this, like it was his sister that brought him. And I said, why is he crying? She said, because he mourns to be with that bad guy in him. He says, it makes him feel empowered. I said, you kidding me? Yeah, it makes him feel empowered. He didn't want to get rid of him. I said, no, you can't do that. That's not a good thing. So he left. A couple months later, I hear back, I got a call from his sister. And she said that he went into deep depression after calling for the guy that was in his body, and he actually killed himself. He committed suicide because he wanted to be still with that darkness that was in him, and he wanted to stay with it, and he was mad because it wasn't there anymore, and so he committed suicide. I was floored. And I thought, how do you feel with something like that when you thought you're doing a good thing for someone, and yet that person was not willing to give up that darkness? And why did he do it to himself? Like, I thought to myself, maybe it did come back. Maybe because apparently she said he was crying and calling for him to come back, and apparently she said it wouldn't come back. It was because it couldn't. Because once you're possessed once, you can't come back a second time. It doesn't do it anymore. You're done. It's gone. Because your body's pure. So, because he went through the blessings, he went through this complete cleansing ceremony, and he couldn't handle it. He committed suicide. And he was only young, not even 19 years of age. I was like, oh man, it just sucks. You can do your best to help people as much as you can. I did. I mean, I do what I can do, and in my work, a lot of people know my work. Those that I'm going to thank you guys for all joining the chat room as well. The UPRN radio network. The show actually is called Between Two Worlds Radio. I've actually had this show for a good well over 20 years, and I've been on every station. Some of the stations I used to work with and produce and direct and that sort of thing. Then I was out of the airwaves for a while with Between Two Worlds Radio for about 3-4 years, and then I decided to get back into it again. So I'm loving it, getting back into it, because I love to talk about the work that I do. But I wanted to talk about anything related to Halloween, and the reason why, because there's a lot of people have forgotten what Halloween really is about. They think it's all to do with fireworks and dressing up. When Johnny Enoch and him and I talked about, like I said last week, and there's a lot of history to what they talk about regarding what Halloween means. A lot of people didn't realize that pumpkins weren't the real, like I said, custom that they used. They used turnips. Turnips were actually the item that was used to display. It wasn't pumpkins first. And the British started all that, England. So, we're the secondary part of the country from the UK. And I guess for some reason somebody started up using pumpkins. I guess they thought it was heartier, better, Agent Orange. I don't know. But now pumpkins have become a big thing, and they put stories to them. So it's kind of interesting. But Halloween, I find I've always enjoyed doing. Once in a while, I created a belief system to myself. Thought to myself, I would never do readings on a Halloween, because it's what you call the witching hour. A lot of people in spirit, now people that practice witchcraft, it's actually at its strongest on Halloween. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute here. They're using it by a date. Halloween is by season, not by a date. Like, people use October 31st as the date. Well, there is a story to that. But now they're talking about removing, today, the news media, or yesterday as well, they talked about wanting to remove Halloween completely out of celebration. Yeah, it's on the news. They want to take Halloween out, because now the churches and religion is getting in the way. They want to remove it because they think that we are becoming the heathens, dressing up as pretend to be somebody else, that we're celebrating devil worshiping. They are coming up with all these, fundamental ideas, and trying to stop. I guess they're trying to get a government to stop us from actually celebrating Halloween. They've actually already taken it out of the schools a lot. A lot of the kids used to dress up. When I was a kid in school, I dressed up. Now the kids aren't allowed to dress up because they think they're going to insult someone's religion. So, there's one for you. Shar says, Derrick, what about listening to a live show using a Ouija board? Well, if people can listen to it, they can go listen to all you want. If you're in the presence of a Ouija board, and if you do it correctly, see, this is the problem. People don't put a white light around themselves. They don't do it correctly, and they actually end up hurting themselves, or someone else gets hurt. I'm actually a recipient of that. I was at a birthday party, and I told the story over and over again for years, but when I lived here in BC, my parents came up to BC here for about a year. My dad got a job working to make chain links for a shipping business. And I got to know some of the kids when I was going to school here, and there was a couple of boys, twin brothers, that are from England that moved here, and it was their birthday. So it was like, there was a lot of kids for the birthday party. I'm gonna sip here. There were a lot of kids for a birthday party, but it downsized a little bit. Most of the kids went home. So the only kids that were left were myself and the young Jewish boy, nice young man, young kid, and two, the British brothers were actually, they were twin brothers' birthday. So we were in their basement area where there were all the couches and there was a coffee table. And the twin brothers said, oh, they got a Ouija board for their birthday. And, you know, as a kid, you don't think, you're like, no big deal, ha ha ha, whatever, right? But yet, for some reason, as soon as they said it, and as soon as they brought out the board and laid it on top of the table, my chest started feeling really weird, okay? And I'm thinking, oh crap, something doesn't feel right. I don't know why. You know, here's that spider senses tingling kid, you know. So the Jewish boy next to me, he says to the boys, he says, that is the devil's board. You should not be playing that game. That's not good. And the kids going, oh, you're crazy, right? So they open up the packaging and open up the box, and they laid out the board, pulled out the planchette, laid it down on top of that, and I felt even worse. Like, really, I was not feeling really right. So the boy to my right, the young Jewish boy, he says, you know, I can prove it to you that this is the devil's board. And the kid's going, okay, how can you prove it? And he says, well, and I saw he was wearing a Star of David, you know, his own little necklace around his neck. And he's like, I can prove it to you. I'll take this and I'll put it on the board. And if the board, you know, and this is what he said out loud. He said, if this is the devil's board, you will burn. If it isn't the devil's board, then nothing will happen. And he placed the Star of David on top of the car onto the board. And not even a minute, all of a sudden you could smell smoke. And then we start seeing smoke come up from all four sides of the table. Just smoke billowing up from both sides. And you could smell burnt wood. And the one boy, twin brother, reached over and pushed that board off, like just shove it off the table. Here was a burnt black mark on the table, right in the center. One square, burnt square mark from underneath that board. Kid, the Jewish boy grabs his Star of David. He said, see? And I got up. I had no words to say. I had no words to say. All I could say was to myself, shoom. I just turned around and I ran out the back door. I headed straight home and I didn't look back. That's how freaking scared I got. This is a kid. Myself, being a kid, I scared. Now, and yet for years, I've always dealt with so many things that were scary, that I got scared by, that was all to do with the other side. In the spirit world. And there's the spirit world, and then there's the bad side of it. And I've always, for some reason, got myself so caught up in it. Now, a life experience for a kid like me growing up, you know, and like I said before earlier, when I was young, I grew up in a haunted house. I grew up with ghosts. They were my babysitters. Uh, and being in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, Winnipeg is considered one of the most haunted provinces in Canada, next to Ontario. And because its colonization of the land was in the 1600s, where it started back then. So I lived on a street, Hartford, which is one of the oldest colonized areas. And the house I lived in was just your typical old squared, boxed home. And it was where all the military families used to live. My dad was in the military. He was stationed Camp Shiloh, just outside of Brandon, and or Winnipeg. But when we lived in the place, and just all there was my mom, my dad, my sister, and myself. But for some reason, any time through the night, I would hear voices talking, and you'd hear this. Like they're talking, like they're whispering. But I thought it was my sister or somebody was in the room. Like I thought my mom was awake or talking with dad. And I would wake up and look back, and there's nobody at the door. Mom and dad are sound asleep. You can hear this. As soon as I walk in towards the living room to mom and dad's bedroom, we open the door, and all you hear is snores, like you're out, right? But yet I'm still hearing voices, like I'm hearing people whispering. And so I go in the living room, and here I'm seeing a male and a female talking to each other on the couch. But they're transparent. Like they're human, they're people, but they're transparent. And one would look back at me, like as they're talking to each other, and then one would look towards me and go, "Oh, hi, Derrick. How are you doing?" And the woman would say, "How you doing, sweetheart?" I said, "Good." She says to me, she says, "Are we bothering you?" And I said, well, sort of, I heard your voices. And she says, "Oh, it's okay. We're not here to scare you. It's okay." And I said, "Okay." And she says, "Just to let you know, we used to live here." Okay. Okay. And she said, "You can go back to bed if you want." So I would turn around and go back to bed. Really? I was used to that. And so they became my babysitters. They were watching me. I'm not sure if they ever spoke to my sister. My sister never mentioned them. But for me, I grew up with them. They look just human. They're people like us, just passed away, and they would come in, go out, they fade in, fade out. That was it. And most people that live in Manitoba would know. You would get rappings on the walls, knocking on the ceilings. If you want to communicate with them, sometimes if you can't hear them, they would, if you couldn't see them or hear them, they would talk to you by knocking on the walls, knocking on the ceilings. And literally, you would hear them. And there's nobody outside, because you can walk outside and there's nobody there, especially if it's snowing outside, and yet you'll still hear knocking on the walls if you're wanting to communicate with them. Many times I communicated with spirits in when I was doing seances. I got involved learning about seances, and I got involved in a lot of doing seances as well. People don't realize being a medium, doing mediumship is not the same as seances. It's a lot different. A seance is where you get the ghost to participate with everyone in the group. So it's not sitting in the room and say, "Oh, your mother's here." That's it. It's more like, okay, is so-and-so's mother's here? Can you give us a sign? Knock on the wall. Is this her? Can we name your name? And they'll go, "Yes, knock, knock," to knock, that sort of thing. Or they'll alphabetically do an alphabet by keep on going. They'll tap, 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 tap until you get an answer. And that's what I did. And I got used to that. So to me, it was normal. People loved me coming in and participating, because anytime I walk into the room, they'll know for a while that, and it's happened. I've done seances in Winnipeg where I came up there. I was asked to do a performance there. And I was to do workshops. I was teaching mediumship workshops and that sort of thing, and for about a little over 2 weeks. And I was training people, teaching them how to use their skills, and how they can learn how to see them. And most people are afraid to see ghosts. People are, because they're so Hollywood. We get so Hollywoodized. We get so used to seeing the other side of the world. Like we're used to seeing Hollywoodism, and they'll make it so big. That oh, you'll be so scared, the monster's coming in. Well, forget about the freaking monster. And anybody who's a ghost is not a killing ghost. They're just people that passed away, just want to make their presence known. You're going to have shadow people. Shadows are a little different. Sometimes there are some shadow people that want to stay. They have history to it. And it depends on the violence. Depends on the situation, every location. If there's activity, lots of activity at one location does not mean it's going to be like that in another house. Anytime you're doing any paranormal investigations, every house is different. Nobody's the same. Not one building is the same. Not one house is the same. All are different. The response is different. The connection with the spirits are different. It's different for everybody. You try and explain that to people. Oh, I saw it on TV. This is what you do. Oh, mediums are all the same. No, they're not. Not all mediums can do what I do. When I talk to someone, I hear them. I hear them by their voices. I can describe them because they want me to describe them. That's how I hear them. That's how I talk to them. And I will point out, like it's almost like as if you are remote viewing what they're doing, whether it's now or what they did in the past. Or they'll show you where they are now or where you may be wanting to be in the future. So I get to do all that because these are all the years of my training. And I worked with some people that were in the military that were remote viewers, and this is what their jobs are to be remote viewers. And they help, whether it's the military or they help other people in businesses, they help people. A good friend of mine passed away, Ron Bard, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's originally from New York City, New York, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But if you guys remember Japan, where they had their tsunami, okay? Ron was quite famous in Japan, and they called him the super psychic. And me knowing Ron for a long, long time, him and I used to have him on my show a lot. We talk about all kinds of stuff, and he was so fun because we always have a lot of fun talking about different things. But Ron became very famous in Japan. He was well known in magazines, you name it, everywhere. He was that famous, and he would help read for corporate businesses. And Ron would. One day he called me up. He said, "Derrick, I've got way too many clients. I'm heading out to Japan in a few weeks, in about a month from now. I'm heading to Japan." And he says, I need someone to come with me to take some of my clients for me. He says, "I'll pay you half the money if you come up. I'll pay your way. We'll pay your way and everything, and I'll pay you half the money what I earn to take care of the rest of these other clients that I can't take care of." And I said, "Sure." I said, "Well, what are you getting paid up there?" And he goes, "I'm getting paid $5,000 an hour." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I get paid $5,000 an hour. I read for corporate businesses." "So you're offering me $2,500 for an hour just per client?" He goes, "Yeah." "I'm in." Why not? So no one's ever given me an offer like that before. Sure. Okay. He said, "Get your passport ready. We'll go. I'll get you up here." So I got all my passport. Everything's all ready to go. This is in March. And 3 days before I was supposed to fly, I have a nightmare. 3 nights straight, repeat nightmare. I seen waters rising. I seen people drowning. I seen fires. I see explosions. I see all these all these bad things to people, and I'm going like, what the hell? This is really not good. So I called up Ron, and I said, Ron, I'm sorry, bro, I can't go. Something's not right. I can't go. And he says, don't worry about it. He says, we'll take, he says, I said, because we were supposed to go there twice, like March and then go again in August. And I said, I'll go with you in August. He says, okay, no problem. I told him my story, what happened. And he says, we'll take care of it. I'll bring my daughter with me this time. So he left and he went to Japan. 3 days later, they had the tsunami. That's what happened in Japan. That's how I know what I felt. But I told Ron also, be safe. Don't get caught up, with whatever goes on. Stay safe, just use your skills, psychic skills, make sure you're taken care of. So he was in Sapporo, Japan for a month. He couldn't leave Japan because of the radiation, but also the airlines were down because there's so many bad things that happened up there. He finally got home. He was never the same after he got back. Ron was so, not passive, he was so sickly. And a year later he passed. I believe whatever happened there, that whatever he ate or drank, and it shouldn't have happened to him where he was. So I think it's whatever came in that he ate or drank was in his body, and it slowly deteriorated him when he passed. Now, how come Ron didn't see that? Ron went because he did not want to disappoint the Japanese corporate businesses. I know he did. He would take a chance, because this guy was once military as well. He actually was his position in the military, he was like a military police is what his position was. So he knew what it was like to serve, and he felt that he had to be there no matter what, and he did. He went. I miss the guy because he was a super nice guy to work with. So I mean, I've lost a lot of friends in this field, in this work. Not in a negative way, but a lot of really great people out there that have been involved in the paranormal, have been great readers. Another good friend of mine, Kenny Kingston, the late Kenny Kingston. He's known as the Hollywood he was a psychic to the stars. He actually met a lot of famous people on TV and radio. He read for John Wayne, Carol Burnett. He read for Truman, Harry Truman. He read for a lot of famous people. So he was well known. And I was very fortunate to have Kenny on my show a few years back, and for some reason I had to make contact with him to have him on. And because I was 14 years old when I saw him on TV, and he was actually interviewing or he was being interviewed by a fellow in Edmonton, Alberta, Tommy Banks. November the 10th, 1971. And I was there. I watched him on TV, and I said to I was living on the farm then. I said to my mom, I said, I'd like to be like him one day. That's all I said. I'd like to be like him one day. And here I am. But I was very fortunate to meet Kenny. And he was a really super nice fellow, and he would give you everything in the world to help you out, to let you know what you can do for yourself. And I told Kenny when I interviewed him, if you ever get a chance, folks, to go on YouTube and type in Kenny Kingston, Whiteskycloud, my show, and listen to it, and you'll hear what how him and I how I interviewed him. But he was a lot of fun to work with. Okay. Let's see. Dolores sends me a message here. I deliver packages for the post office here. I was digging for their box, and a guy was just talking. How are you? You got a lot to deliver. It went on for a few minutes. I turned around and nobody was there. I said, okay. His voice was clear. He could be, but nothing new. My last home was alive, then all went with my XX. Laugh out loud. Well, I'll tell you guys, I used to work for the post office back in 1976, 77. I worked for the post office in Lethbridge, Alberta, 3.5 years. When the post office is empty, when you're by yourself at late at night, you will get bumped in the night, so to speak. There are people that have been dedicated letter carriers and postal workers inside, and they did it. They'll live to the very end of their life. And so, yeah. Yeah, he's basically that guy that passed away is saying, yeah, you have a lot to deliver, because he knows he must have been a letter carrier himself. He was under the, probably he was with the, now that's I'm not sure if you're in the States or if you're, Dolores, I'm not sure if you're in the States or Canada, but where we are, years ago back in the 70s, they had LCUC, which is a union, which is Letter Carriers Union, and then we have CUPW, which is the Canadian Union Postal Workers. I don't know what they have right now, if it's changed, but yeah, I know what that's like to be working in a small building or in a large building, whether it's small or large. But yeah, a lot of people have been. If you think about it, the postal industry has been around for a long, long time, since the 1800s. You know, since the big, let's see, the wild ponies. Okay, heard that one. Yeah, what about listening to a live show using a Ouija board? Yeah, I don't think it'll affect anyone whatsoever if it's live. There is a fellow, when I was in Winnipeg and I did a paranormal conference 5 years ago, we were at the Marlborough Hotel. And the Marlborough Hotel is a very famous hotel back in the early 20s and 30s. And they would have famous people come in, actors, actresses, you name it, from all over the world. Even the princes and the king, the princess and the queens, all the royalty was there. The Marlborough was very well known. There was a main floor area. On the main floor as you're coming in, and to your right, and you're going slightly downstairs, that's where all the newspaper media would meet up. That's where they would go. And they would have a pool room, a pool table there, a bar. They got everything available, and that's where all the news media would meet up together in that one particular part of the building. Back in 1932, and before that, if you know, let's see, Arthur Conan Doyle has been around a long, long time. And if you know who Harry Houdini is, you know, the master of escape, when Harry Houdini passed away, Arthur and him were close friends before, and he decided to do a seance to make contact with Harry Houdini in the Marlborough Hotel. Apparently there was success there in the Marlborough, but yet they tried to do it on TV when Amazing Randy did it back in the 80s, but it never worked. For some reason, I don't know why. Maybe because it was just totally too disrupted. But I know Arthur Conan Doyle did reach to him, and it was, as far as I know, it was successful. Now, also in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, it's actually the largest spiritualist movement or spiritualist church organization in Canada. So it started there back in the 1870s, 1880s. I can't remember my history that well, but that's how old the spiritualist movement was back in Winnipeg. I'm also myself am a spiritualist medium. I'm also a spiritualist minister. I've taken my 4 years training as a reverend minister, so I am a minister legally. I am registered with Ottawa, so I can marry people and divorce people. No, just not divorce people, but marry them or bless them, that sort of thing. I've been doing it for a long, long time. But I don't go around telling people I'm Reverend Derrick Whiteskycloud. I don't do that. I did it once, and there's one. I was up in Prince George, and one guy came up to me and he says, I'm looking for a priest. I says, why are you looking for a priest? He says, well, I'm having troubles. I need someone to talk to. I said, well, I'm a minister. And he says, really, a real reverend minister? I said, yes, I am. Father, can I come talk to you and confess about something? And I'm in the doorway going into a high-rise to go visit my niece. And he said, I just needed something to tell you, Father. And I said, it's so hard to hear that word, Father. I said, okay, but you don't have to call me Father. Just call me Derrick. Yes, Father. Father Derrick. He goes. So, anyways, he was telling his story about his life and what he, and he was asking my opinion, what he should do. And I gave him some advice. And, thank you so much, Father Derrick. And then they left, right? The funny part was, I said to my wife, I said, this guy came in the front door, like she was outside the truck watching me, and she said she was, I said, this guy came to the front door and he's wanted to talk to me regarding doing a confession. She goes, I didn't see no guy come in the front door. I said, yeah, he was. He came over and he did a confession. He was actually telling me that he wanted to confess about something that he was feeling bad about. And she goes, there was nobody there. She said, well, I wonder why you're talking by yourself. Like, there was nobody there. She was watching me and there was nobody there. And I went, oh, shoot. Okay, so this guy was doing, after he died, he was confessing his sins, and then he went to the spirit world. So it made a whole lot of sense. So, okay, I went along with it. I'm okay with that. That was fine. But I had a lot of, it's kind of funny when you actually can see a ghost, a person's passed away, and they're coming up to you and confessing their sins so they can cross over into the light. Because when they found out I'm a minister at Road by Reverend Minister, okay, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's been having fun doing it. But again, I got a few minutes left, folks. I got 15 minutes still before the show is over. But if you guys have a story to tell me, I'm actually offering an opportunity. Call the station. You can call 504-273-7379. If you can tell me one of your most scariest moments of your life. And I know Laura Lee is on the line. Thank you, Laura Lee, for coming in the chat room with me. She's got a scary story to tell. I know that. Now, whether she wants to make a call is up to her. But she's had some of her hauntings in her house as well as in her work. Now, I haven't spoken to this woman in a long time, so I don't know what's going on. But she's busy, busy, busy. Good for her. Hands up to you, my dear. Now, Shar is in the chat room. I've been to Winnipeg. Makes sense that what you're saying. The only time in my horse's life that she wouldn't jump, I was in a national horse show, and normally she jumped anything. That's true. A horse, if they see something they don't like to see, yeah, you can, please go ahead, Laura Lee, call. A horse, animals can see ghosts and they can see spirits. If they don't see something that's right for them, and if they feel there's a block, they'll stop. They'll look and they'll either stare at it or bark at it or whatever, or to be afraid of it. You can try I've seen horses even refuse to go into a barn. They will fight their way not coming in that barn. And you're looking around, you're kind of looking around like how come there's nothing in the barn? You see there's nothing in there, but yet they refuse to go inside because there's something in there they don't like. Horses, dogs, cats, any kind of animal can see. If they're not comfortable with something, they're not going to go into the barn or any other area if they think it's not right. This is what they can do. So, yeah. Yes, Laura Lee, you can call. Love to hear from you. I haven't spoken to you in a long time. You've been busy and I've been busy. I know her show rocks. She actually, hit my mic. She has been so busy. She's Laura Lee herself. She actually has a show called The Angel Rocker, and she's been rocking it since she's been doing her angelic work. Good pun. And she's got other people that she works with throughout the show, so I'm sure she's been doing phenomenal work, and it's been picking up like crazy. So, anyways, yeah, we all have a dog. Now, about over a year ago, my dog passed away, and we're forced to put her down because of her injuries. It was horrible. But after she passed away, and we had her cremated, and I went to go pick up her ashes. When I held onto her ashes, I lost it because I could feel her energy still connected to the ashes. My body trembled. So I know I know what it's like to hold on to an energy of an animal. And yes, Keith, I am an animal communicator. I've been doing it for years as well. At times I do work for the RCMP to help find, or not RCMP, but I do work for people and help them out. So help find their missing person, or missing dog or cat. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Now I saw something there. Let's see. Okay, I can connect her to Skype. Add. Where is she? Try and get Laura Lee here. Add her in. Is that correct? I think I did. Okay, let's see if I did. Oh. What's going on? Okay. Joe, can you see Laura Lee? Joe? Did you fall asleep? I think Joe fell asleep. Okay. Let's see here. Trying. Okay. See if that works. I'm not sure. Let's see what happens here. I'm trying to see if I can add her in. I don't see it. Yeah. I think Joe fell asleep. Or he's away from his desk. He's having too much fun. Yeah. That's why I've always liked to have people call my own number. Yeah, I'll have to try it out next time. Anyways, let's see here. Okay, Shar is saying, I'm begging you to look at my dog. My dog cries or growls. You need a show. Yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, thank you for telling me that I need a show. Yeah. Need a show talking to wildlife. Cool. I can work on that one. Try calling. No. Okay. As a boy, I could call loons and shore. Yeah. If it's amazing that we can actually, if we can impersonate an animal. As a friend of mine actually can impersonate a raven. He's so good at it that the ravens will come in gathering around him. That's how talented he is. And he's learned. He's been out in the bush with them, listening to them, and he'll do it, and they'll come gathering around him like as if he's part of them. Okay. They're begging you to look at my dog. Okay. Frog snakes just sent you my contact card. Okay. Okay. Still trying to get her to contact me.
I'm here, Derrick.
There she is! I heard you!
Here I am!
She made it!
Yes. Joe's a good man.
Yeah, good.
He texted and he answers.
Well, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. So, are you having fun up there? Did you guys ever decide to go out and do some dressing up and scaring up a few people?
You know what? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I live in a haunted house. I don't know. We hardly ever get kids. We had 10 kids. I don't live anywhere rural. A couple streets over, a couple houses over. There'll be like 100 kids, not on my street, but a couple streets over. But our house, I don't know why.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're afraid to come near your house.
No, we do have haunted house.
Well, see, it's so sketty, so very sketty.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, we do.
Yeah, we're almost getting done our time, but you know what? If you can maybe define one of your stories that you can share with our listeners, what your experience was when you went through your haunted experience, because you actually were part of you're a part of a TV show that did a documentary on you.
Yes. Yeah, we're featured on Paranormal Survivor, Season 4, Episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. And I'll try and keep it short because it's 11-plus years of activity, extreme activity, besides our family experiencing.
Yeah.
But my common-law partner, I call my hubby, we've been together long enough, almost 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he's just started on UPRN, too. He's an hour before my show.
Okay.
But anyways, he, what had happened was just little things were happening around the house, and this all started with a dream, actually. There's a tree in my front yard. It was about 13 years ago, and I'm a nurse, but I'd hurt my back, so I was doing jewelry, all kinds of pet accessories, whatever. And very quickly, I know you only got a few minutes, but long story short, it identified itself as being demonic, gave me its name, gave me its spelling, and its animal form. After that, all heck broke loose. My husband's been thrown 15 feet across the kitchen, burnt, scratched, bitten, our whole family. We've lost some pets. To be very quick, on top of that, other people, like I say, besides our family, we just did a recent experiment a couple months ago where there was somebody on the West Coast in the U.S., somebody on the East Coast in Maine or Massachusetts, and then somebody in Florida, and we're way up in northwestern Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
They were all using 3 different devices, obviously different geographical locations. We were only connected by Skype. They were all getting the same kind of answers through their ghost boxes, and pretty scary answers about what was coming through. And there's quite a bit of evidence as well. I do have it on Facebook, so people can see some of the stuff that we've experienced.
Good, because I mean, I was telling my one story regarding these 4 boys that were forced to run out to the field because their cows were being killed by this. They thought it was a bear, and they found out later that it was actually 9 feet tall because when it stood up, it had legs of a goat, and it had huge horns. Curled horns like a ram, and he ran up to the boys and he told the boys that they could not kill him, and they were doing these kids had a 30-30 Winchester repeaters and a 303, and they were shooting this thing and it wouldn't die.
I remember you telling me that, but also to share with your listeners, obviously I'm not going to give away any details, but the more I'm also a psychic medium and an energy healer, the more I try and get away from the paranormal, the more it finds me. And one night, somebody that I'm familiar with has a very, very powerful attachment. Wouldn't allow me to connect with anybody to get her some help. I had to call Derrick. Derrick witnessed it with his own eyes.
Yeah.
We can tell you it was pretty darn evil, let me tell you.
Yeah, not good.
So that, folks, that exists out there. If you don't believe in it, it does. I saw this person levitate on the screen in front of me.
Yeah.
And there's no way that could have happened.
No. No. Yeah, well, that's why her show is so cool.
Well, you've been on my show before, too.
Yeah.
Well, I just happened to be, I seen it came up on Facebook. I just happened to pop on. I went, oh, I got to pop in and listen to what Derrick's talking about for Halloween. So I'm glad I got a chance to call in.
I was telling my story about all the most, I guess, the scariest things that I dealt with through the years myself, my own experiences. And I mean, when everybody can, once we're done the program, you guys can refer back and listen to it. If you actually miss any of the program, look back to it and have a good watch and listen, and you'll actually have a better understanding why and what I go through. I'm not just your regular guy. I'm not just a regular psychic or medium. I'm not just your regular person that does radio. I've been doing this for more than 30 years, and I've been around it a lot. So I've had so many physical, mental, emotional experiences, and I just keep on going because I never asked for this. Spirit gave it to me and said, you're going to be doing this. And here I am. I actually had a regular job. No, you're going to do this. And they stopped me from doing what I was doing as a regular 9-to-5 guy and said, no, this is your work. This is your job. This is what we need you to do. So I listened to them.
I have to agree with you, Derrick, because I think that's what I keep saying. I don't want to deal with this, and it keeps coming into my path. So I've kind of accepted the same thing, that this is part of what I'm going to be dealing with.
And it's not a karma either. It's not a karma. Everybody keeps on saying it's a karma. No, it's not a karma. It was a request from the other side. They need our help. And so they look for people that are strong inside. That's why they look for people like myself. They look for people like Laura Lee, because they know overall she's damn good at it.
Thank you, Derrick. Well, like I said, it was when this happened. It was like, I think my time. It was 3:34 in the morning.
Yeah.
Anybody I tried to connect with, and I had to just take a breath, be calm, and think, who can I call? And Spirit gave me your name. You happened to be online, and like I said, you witnessed that with me.
Yeah.
We dealt with it, and eventually the battery on the person that was being affected went dead. But you saw it yourself, and like I said, it's quite the thing. You folks don't ever want to see that, believe me. If you don't have to, and if you don't believe in it, it exists.
It does. I want to thank our listeners and our viewers. Those are actually on the UPRN Talk Radio. Also thank our listeners from 107.7 FM New Orleans, as also our viewers on Facebook Live. Thank you guys for joining the chat room, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Be good to each other. This is Derrick Whiteskycloud on Between Two Worlds Radio. Have fun, enjoy your Halloween, and don't explode, don't blow up the house with your fireworks. Take care, guys.